Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Crypto Tips. My name is Toby, and this is
Kent Halliburton.
so Kent is a really good friend of mine. He's a Bitcoin OG for sure. He's been in many cycles in this space. Probably wouldn't have it any other way with anybody that I'm introducing on this channel. So yeah, we go back and forth on like our favorite coins, like what should we be doing, like when the bear run is going to end or the bull run is going to start or whatever. So this is one of the guys that I talked to as along with Hugo as well. So welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you finally on the show. And he's going to talk about Solana. And so if nobody really knows what Solana is, so pretty much it is an incredibly fast blockchain. I think it goes 50 to 65,000 transactions per second on the blockchain. And each I mean, you can send about 1 million transactions for about $10. Is that right, Kent? About
Something like that. That's about right.
Yeah. So I mean, if you did that on Ethereum, that would be 300, like $200,000 to $300,000. So you're really decreasing the price of transactions here, and you're increasing the speed as well. So Solana, actually, I'm from San Diego. Solana is a beach just north of where I grew up, and a couple guys got together who worked at Qualcomm and created this place, this ecosystem called Solana. The main guy is Anatoly Yakovenko. I think that's his name. And yeah, him and his friends were working on this for a while now. And finally it's come about. So during the last couple of weeks, we've seen about, or the number of projects on Solana quadruple. Tell me what the heck is going on with this space.
Yeah, well, Toby, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. This is
You're
my
welcome,
first
man.
YouTube, and it's pretty fun to participate with you. We met in the halls of a Steam conference multiple years ago, and it's been fun to grow our friendship. Um, so Solana caught my attention in 2018. I was listening to Kevin Rose. He had a podcast called Block Zero, and I heard Anatoly speak. And my background originally or education was in computer engineering, and the way that Anatoly spoke about proof of history, which is like the basis that they built Solana, it just really resonated with me. And so I tracked the project for a long time during their Discord and just kind of kept up with the community to see what was going on. And what I kept seeing is breakthrough after breakthrough from that team. And it got me a bit intrigued. And so as I dug into it, the team itself caught my eye. 4 of the 5 members have worked together for something like 15 years now. They've worked at multiple different organizations together. But if you remember the flip phone back in the day, that each flip phone had inside of it a Qualcomm chip. And that Qualcomm chip was responsible for the movement of all the traffic, all the phone calls and the data that was going on. And this group of guys was responsible for the operating system on that. So what they were responsible for was maximizing how much information could be pushed through that little tiny space. We're talking like an operating system on 2 megabytes worth of space, right? So they didn't have much space to work with, and they needed to do it in a fast amount of time, and they needed to be synchronized with the rest of the network. It's a very, very similar problem that comes along with blockchain. How do you synchronize and get the most throughput? So they saw what was going on, and in 2018, they launched a white paper. They raised a little bit of capital, and that capital went towards actually building a network. They're head down for about a year, and then they launched it. I think sometime like the beginning of 2019. Like the first test nets, and we're up to mainnet beta at this point. But I think when they launched, if people, like the whole industry had heard about like the next big blockchain that's going to have all this throughput and have all these transactions per second. But I think that most people in the cryptocurrency space were a little tone deaf to the next greatest thing coming out, and so it just sort of fell on deaf ears. But I think what's happened is over the course of the last year, like they've been validated, and more people are seeing, oh my gosh, you really can get all this throughput. So, when I compare that to like Ethereum, for instance, they're sort of innovating and doing a lot of the same things Ethereum did. But what Ethereum did was they brought like this, like their real innovation was the idea of a decentralized computer. That's what Vitalik really brought to the table. But the mechanism by which they brought the decentralized computer was created was based on proof of work. And they took some of the parameters of proof of work and they tweaked them to maximize them to get the most throughput they could, which meant block times that were 15 seconds. Well, rather than taking proof of work, Anatoly and his team, they sort of refigured everything and thought through, is there a different way that we can do this? So rather than proof of work or proof of stake, Anatoly actually conceived like this idea of proof of history. And that's the real breakthrough by which Solana is able to get so many transactions. So in essence, the problem with all decentralized systems is, how do you synchronize yourself? How do you know what's actually true in a decentralized fashion? And that synchronization of information is quite difficult to do. But if you could create a trustless clock, then you could solve that problem. And so if you think of like Bitcoin's block times, they settle every 10 minutes, or a new block is created every 10 minutes, and we can say after 6 confirmations, it's settled. But in essence, a Bitcoin clock is going 1 tick every 10 minutes. And so with proof of history, what they figured out how to do is every tick on the clock could be 400 microseconds. So that's huge orders of magnitude bigger. And they did this through a mechanism by which, if you think that there's hash rates, I don't know, you're familiar at this point. I know, Toby, you are. The audience is a bit technical, but a hash means like any amount of data can go into the beginning of a function and out comes the other side, like a string of characters. And it's like a fingerprint of that information. And so what they figured out how to do is they took the same information and kept hashing it over and over again, but sending that out on the blockchain. And that provided a clock, because if you go through that same cycle 10,000 times, that each of that actual hashing took a certain amount of time. So you could see which hashes came before and which came after. And this way they were able to create a clock based on data itself. So it's a bit complicated to go much deeper than that, but by having a way to time, then you could order your transactions. And so in this way, you could just jam your network with transactions and know specifically, okay, if it came before this moment in the clock or after this moment, you can tell which one was true or which one is false.
Yeah.
So that's how they were able to do it, is order transactions based on a clock that's decentralized.
Yeah. And so this makes transactions pretty much just seamless, and you don't have to wait.
Totally. So if you want to go to their website, they've got a little application there where they let you play with it, and so you can log in, and what it is they try to have you break the blockchain by typing faster than transactions settle.
That's
great. So you
great.
can go smash on your keyboard and you can see the transactions settling in real time.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, as fast as you can type. So to give you some idea, the potential of this, right now they're about 50 to 65,000 transactions a second. The theoretical limits of this are upwards of 700,000. To give you an idea, like the NASDAQ stock exchange is something like 500,000 transactions per second. The Visa network, 65,000 transactions per second. So if they reach their scale right now, which is only limited by bandwidth, if they reach their scale, there's enough on the first layer, no sharding, no extra complexity. There's enough space on the first layer. They can take the entire Visa network, the entire NASDAQ system, and still run seamlessly.
Wow. And so that pretty much deems a lot of the second layer solutions like you don't need them, possibly.
Exactly.
Wow. And now keep in mind, it hasn't been tested It hasn't been through the fire yet. So that's kind of the gray area, right?
Exactly. So I've been, my conviction has gone up in the project as I've seen it get more traction. The more developers that jump into it and say, hey, we want to participate with this, which is partially driven by transaction fees on Ethereum, right? Like, no joke, when developers are seeing, hey, we can't get users because users don't want to use based on our product with the fees that are going on, they start looking for alternatives. And so you're seeing, like Civic has moved over, Link,
Tether,
Audio.
right?
Yeah, Tether is now running on Solana.
Yeah.
Their ecosystem is just growing so fast at this point. I mean, I can't even keep up with it anymore. But it's just telling me like, okay, there's really fire behind this smoke at this point. And I think the biggest question mark in my mind is, like you said, the battle testing. Like,
Yep.
how does this perform in the field over time when we get some real bad actors in there trying to beat up on it? And I'm sure there's been bad actors already, but the bigger a network gets, the more people are going to try to mess with it to game it. And so we need a few cycles. Ethereum's been battle tested, that's for sure at this point. And people know what's going on there, but Solana really hasn't in my mind. But if it gets through this cycle, this year, and grows the way I think it is, the upside potential is pretty tremendous. Like, the market cap's $6 billion to Ethereum's $230 billion. Cardano's like 40 billion, something like that. So
Yeah.
if it's going to be a competitor on that same league, there's lots of upside potential here.
Well, how big do you think Solana's market cap will be by the end of the bull run? What's your thoughts?
My thought is that, I have like a personal conviction that right now it could take on Ethereum in the long run. Like, my conviction level is probably about 40% right now.
Okay.
But if I compare that to something like Cardano, which is also supposed to be a competitive threat with Ethereum, they don't have much past the base token at this point. They're working, they're developing. That is their game plan, is to move slowly but surely towards a long-term steady state. But if I look at where they are right now versus Solana, it seems to me a no-brainer that Solana should at least catch Cardano in the current cycle, given everything that's on offer versus Cardano. And that's 6 billion to 39 billion. So what's that? Eight times?
Yeah.
From where we are right now?
Yeah. Crazy.
That seems doable.
For sure. I think it was about 6 or 8 times. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, and plus it's easy to stake too. So you can stake the thing. It's like kind of a no-brainer. What are a few of your favorite projects on Solana right now?
Oh, I'm a fan of Radium.
Radium. Okay.
Because Radium is one of my favorites because they have liquidity pools. So they're doing farming, and that's helping to bring projects over. And it's fascinating actually because so I've interacted with Radium through the Soleil wallet. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Right, Soleil.
Sure.
Anyhow, it's a wallet that interfaces with Radium being an app. And what I saw in the wallet too is that if you have Ethereum, like, you can do atomic swap directly into the Solana ecosystem. So I think they've done a good job of reducing friction if people want to move at least from the Ethereum ecosystem into Solana. But they've got liquidity pools there and farming that's going on with pretty good yields. The last time I looked, it was like 200% APY.
Okay.
On some of their projects. And they also just introduced fusion pools, which means that your LP token, whatever you're staking, you're earning APY in both tokens instead of just farming a single token. So that's kind of an interesting tweak too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to see too where the Oxygen project goes, because that's like a prime brokerage product that's being created on Solana. Mm-hmm. And if they're able to realize their aims there with that project, it'll allow an order book. And so back up a step and talk a little bit about Ethereum. So Ethereum's first approach with DEXs were projects like EtherDelta or IDEX. These it was an order book, a matching order book, where people would put buy orders, sell orders. Yeah, exactly. It was a horrible experience. I mean, I played with these things, and that's why the automated market maker approach of SushiSwap caught on, is because the blockchain itself wasn't able to settle transactions quick enough to make an order book model work. But if you look at most of the world, there aren't automated market makers going on in most other markets in the world. It seems like the world as a whole has sort of settled on order books being the preferred way to transact financially in, in an exchange setting. So with the speed that Solana offers, projects like Oxygen are going to be based on an order book, which I think is interesting. So it should also make it easier for traditional finance guys to say, oh, this looks just like the environment I'm used to. I can come jump in here. Serum, I think, is interesting. That was the first DEX that was launched on Solana. Really quite an easy system to work with. So what I see too is that basically everything that's been built on Ethereum, it's all open source. I mean, everything's sort of fluid in this space. Solana's open source too. There's nothing closed source about it, but developers can just take the best of what's working on Ethereum for project wise. And if it's not fitting with the protocol level of Ethereum, they can just bring it directly over, or any other ecosystem too, because they want the transaction speed and the low cost. So I think that there's going to be a bit more migration than we've seen already in the months ahead, unless something changes dramatically with Ethereum and fees. There really needs to be like user adoption of layer 2, in my opinion, to avoid a lot of that exodus.
Kent, thank you so much for this. Really learned a lot. Guys, if you like this, subscribe to our channel and hit that like button, and subscribe to our Patreon, because we've been calling Solana a long time ago. But with that said, Kent, how can we get a hold of you? And yeah, what's your details?
Yeah, I think the best way to get a hold of me is at @KHaliburton on Twitter, and 2 L's in Halliburton. And then I've also got a daily newsletter that's part pleasure, part Bitcoin. Kind of an odd combination, but just something I do on the side, and that can be found at kenth.substack.com.
Cool. Okay, and we'll definitely put that in the notes. So yeah, great guys. Well, thanks again. I hope everybody enjoyed this. We're probably gonna have Kent on again as well, if he wants to. Yeah, so like it's great. It's a great collaboration, because Kent, he lives, about an hour and a half from me, and then Hugo lives 10 minutes from me. And so it's really great to have this group of people, OGs, that understand this space better than most people. And yeah, it's really it's going to be a nice addition to this channel, I think. So anyways, talk to you later, guys, and stay disobedient. Bye-bye.